Hey guys, Ed here. Welcome back, guys, to Models in Beer. Here we go, part 8 to our U.S. self-propelled M40 155mm gun. I did do some things off camera, guys, and let me get you caught up, and then we're going to continue on where we left off, which is working on our 155mm gun that sits on top here, the business end of this guy, right? I did go ahead, guys, and I got the tailgate put in, and this other drop down piece, those are all installed. I got all the chains, the rigging in, and yeah, I just kind of got a lot of that done off of video, or off camera, I should say. There wasn't a whole lot to watch because my big hands were in the way, and everything is so tiny when it comes to this. So that is complete, guys. The spade is down in there. We got it all together, and it's looking great, guys. It's looking really, really good. I'm super happy with the results up to this point. It's been a fun kit. I have no complaints other than the couple of times where the little pulleys were a little bit too small to work with, which was a complete nightmare. And another thing too, what I did, actually, let me find the instruction sheet. Let me show you something. Hang on. Alright, so let me get this out of the way just for a moment here. Now, these chains that are used to support our tailgate, our platform, whatever you want to call it, they have these pins that go in, and you can see them right here, okay, which I'm assuming are to look like they're pins to hold these chains in, right? There's one on each side of there, and the chains go into that area where that pin goes down into. However, that pin is too large, or too large to fit in any of these holes in this tiny chain, okay? So basically those are there for looks. And what they are telling you to do is to take this wire, and let me show you this wire. Alright guys, so here's that wire. It's just some thin, looks like copper wire, okay? And according to the instructions, what they want you to do is to run that through this area where this chain is going, and then to wrap it, I don't know if you can make that out, to wrap it around like you would a tie on a loaf of bread, you know, on there. And I just thought that was corny as hell, and I don't know if the actual M40 had their chains done that way, and you can see it better down here on this bottom one. They want you to do the same thing. Take this wire, run it through the tiny hole of the chain, and then through the eye of the piece that it's connected to, whether it's this tailgate or this area on top here. But they're wanting you to just tie that chain and, like I said, twist it together like a loaf of bread, like you're sealing up a loaf of bread, and calling that done. And I just, like I said, I'm not putting that on mine. That looks ridiculous in my opinion. So what I ended up doing, guys, I took mine and let me see if I can get this in here. Let me get it so we can get a little better focus so I can get up close here. Hang on, guys. Alright, let's see if that's a little bit better. What I ended up doing, guys, is I put the pin in, as they're telling you, right, you can see it on top there. I put my chain inside of there, and I put a dab of CA in there to hold that. And I'm going to paint that that CA with the olive drab, and you'll never see that. But that looks so much better than that bread tie or that piece of copper wire going through there and holding that chain on and then twisting it, you know, to hold it together, and both sides the same way. And down here on the bottom, what I did is I ran the chain through the hole. There's holes provided in this platform here. And then on the other side, I just kind of tucked it back and put some CA on there so it's not hanging. I know that's out of focus, right? But anyways, you get what I'm saying. So let me get this back into focus. But I just thought that's ridiculous to that would have looked silly. And like I said, I don't know if on the real M40 it had that, but I'm not doing it on mine. Okay, that was just too corny looking for me. So anyways, moving on. I am completed with this part of it now, guys. I did this off camera, like I said, just because it was involving a lot of moving the hole around and trying to get the glue. It required 3 or 4 hands in order to do everything I had to do here, and of course I only had 2 to work with, so there was no way of really filming that and making, decent footage out of it. So, all right, guys, with that being said, let's set that aside now and let's get busy on this gun. We got some things to do on there, and let me see where we're going to get caught up to here. I think we left off on the last step we did was on 31. So we'll go ahead and get started on 32 and get that completed. And that looks like we're starting to work on the cradle of our gun. And then we move into our variable recoil mechanism. And yeah, and then moving forwards from there. So let's go ahead and get started, guys. All right, fellas, here we go. Step 32. 32's got us just doing some assembly on the parts that we had built on the previous video. And if you haven't done so yet, guys, go back and watch, the previous videos. That'll get you caught up to where we're at today. All right, so what we need to do first is deal with these 2 pieces right here, okay? I'm sorry, these are going to get painted the olive drab. However, on these pieces here on this lower half, and there's a line that shows us where we need to begin this. From this line down, it's going to be painted a silver/chrome, okay? So we need to treat these individually, not as a unit like we have been. We've been putting together, sub-assemblies and then painting them all at one time. So we can't do that one with this one because we got 2 different colors. So let's go ahead and just get these primed and get them painted, and then we can attach them to, or we can just move forwards in the instructions from there. Let me just say it that way, all right? So let me go ahead and get these guys taken care of, guys. We'll be right back. All right, so we got some screws. We got to get these guys attached to these here. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, we'll do one and then we'll do the other one off camera, again, just to save time. So it shows it going on as such. And it looks like the screw is going to be going in from this side down. Here we go, playing with these tiny parts again. Let's see if we can make this happen the first time. Come on, fingers. Okay, get that in there. See if we can get this nut inside of this wrench. I will have to say, dealing with these tiny nuts and bolts and pulleys have not been fun. And we cannot turn this wrench upside down because the nut will fall out. So we need to do this from the back side, if that makes any sense. And I can't tell if it's grabbing or not. I think so. Cool. We got it. Yeah, what a pain in the butt that is. Alright, cool. Alright, and then it's got us assembling those onto this cradle here. Alright, cool, there we go. Alright, making progress. Let me get some of this mess cleaned up here. Alright guys, so what's next here? We need to construct a recoil mechanism, which is all on the G sprue. So let me locate these parts here, guys, and get them cut out and cleaned up. Okay guys, I ended up doing this off camera simply because it was tedious as hell, and again, it was not viewable with my hands and everything working, but that is that part right here, the recoil mechanism link. So that's completed. I'm sitting here letting this end dry, and so in the meantime though, we can go ahead and get these two parts assembled. And I did do a test fit and everything seems to be fine. So let's go ahead and get this in place. And I need to go back and check my instruction, guys, because we got that aftermarket metal barrel. And we need to, we're going to be using a few parts from the kit for that barrel, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, so I need to go back and take a look at that and see when that's coming into play, so that we'll know what parts we need to get out for that, not go past that point and glue it together and realize that we jumped the gun. There's that side. No, it just went in for me easy on my test fit. There it goes. Well, now it doesn't want to fit. There it goes. I knew it fit, I just did a test fit on it. It fits just fine. Alright, there we go. Let's let that set up, okay guys? Okay guys, off camera again, but I did get the recoil mechanism installed, and that's it right there. Okay. So now moving on. Let's go ahead and take care of step 34, okay? We got a few parts here. Let me locate all these parts and get them cleaned up, and then we'll put it together. Alright, so this looks simple enough. We just take this pin here, and it's got a seat for it right there, just like that. And then we got a cap that closes it off. There you go. There we go. Just like that. Put just a little bit more around these edges just to give it a extra grab. We got a second one to make. There we go. Let's let those set up. Alright, and these get set into these brass pipes here. So I'm going to use CA simply because I want to make sure I get a good bond on there. That plastic glue will not glue to that metal. Alright, let's get this second one together here. These things just keep rolling away from me. And there we have it. Okay, so the instruction shows us going ahead and sticking those onto these here. However, I'm holding off because of the painting process. It's going to make it a little bit easier for me with the masking and everything like that. So let's go ahead and move on to step 35. Okay, let's go ahead and construct this guy here, which I had already done. That's why I got it X'd out. And let's build this contraption up together here, and then it looks like it all gets put together onto our mount here. Okay. We need to start building the traverse handle, and it looks like it contains several parts here, both of which on the G and the D sprue. So yeah, let me go ahead and get these parts dug out. Let's get them cleaned up, and we'll get that put together. Alright, everything's cleaned up and ready for assembly, except I forgot to open my glue bottle here. Got us a stormy day going on out there today. It rained yesterday too, which doesn't help the fact that I need to get my yard mowed and my ditch is full of water. Well, it won't be the first time like that happens, and it won't be the last, I can promise you that. That's part of living in Florida, right? Alright, so we got G45. We need to put that into G52. And it looks like it goes just like this here. Alright, I think I got that in there. That looks pretty straight. So we're going to go with that. Let's give this guy a few moments to set up. Alright, and let's join part G34 to our piece here. Just about like that. And then we got G44. And I gotta figure out which way that sets. Okay, that's setting like this. Oh, and it is keyed. Alright, cool. I don't know if you can make that out or not. But that is keyed, so we know that little booger's going right there because that's matches the receiving end. There we go, stay. Alright, I'm going to quit messing with that until it dries. Alright guys, it's just this one last little tiny part. And it looks like a little bitty gear. I'm not sure if you can make that out or not. It is tiny. But it's got splines on it. It kind of looks like a gear to me. And it is an area where there's mechanical parts for, so a gear would be a pretty fair guess. I know you're not going to be able to see this because it's so tiny, but let me... This little tool here. My wife gave me this. She uses it for her diamond art. And it's perfect for doing what we're doing right here. Let me re-wet this spot again. There we go. Yeah, see, that's a handy little tool. I like that thing. I keep forgetting I have it. Alright, let's see what this looks like. Heck yeah, it looks pretty doggone close. Alright, I'm happy with that. Alright guys, so we have part D87 here, and we're to join D88. So let me get a little bit of plastic glue on here. It is a half moon shape, and it's a tiny little half moon shape, so let's see if we can get that on there first try. There we go, cool. Some more of these tiny parts. Like I said earlier in a past video, it's crazy coming from that 1/16 Tiger tank to this thing, because everything is seems so microscopic on this. Where on the 1/16, you know, everything is manageable size. So, all right, let's give this a few minutes to dry, guys. All right, and then we need part G53, and I got it right here ready to go, and that's going to go right to the back side of this part here. It might be easier for me to get that with tweezers. There we go. That'll work. Let me put just another little dab just for good measure on this piece. Alright. There we go. Let's let that set up. Alright, then we get this little guy here. And he is part D90. And he's got a little cradle that he sets into right here. Just like that. Okay. All right, and part G26. There we go. Let's see if we can land this the first time. Yeah, that's pretty close. Actually, it needs to go a little bit back this way. Alright, I'm happy with that. Alright guys, jumping back really quick, this is the first part that we made on step 35. And we need to put a wheel, which I got right here, onto the back of this. So let's go ahead and take care of that. And then that completes step 35. Here we go. I'm going to sit and hold that for just a few moments. And we got this part here, guys, G9 in the instruction book. And it is going on to our gun cradle assembly here. And let's just keep going with these assemblies here. This one's going right here. There we go. All right, this is that piece we just got done putting the wheel onto, and it's going to go right here. Now let's see if we can get it all to come together with no problems. All right, there we go. I'm good with that. Starting to come together, starting to look like something here. Very cool. Alright guys, I got all the parts here to assemble step 36. And we'll start with this one here. And it has a little cutout for that piece to go into. So you really can't get that wrong. Yeah, there we go. That's what we wanted. Alright, let me get this glued. Be right back. Alright, so you get everything in the frame here. This piece here, G57, it looks as though, because this has got like a half moon on it, I think it wraps around this piece right here. Because it's showing this at being at a 10 o'clock position. I don't know. Alright, we're going to hold off on that. Let me do a little bit more investigative work on that before we commit to that, because that just doesn't seem right. So we'll be back. Alright. I went ahead and went with it. The only thing I can figure is this back piece of D91 has a half a moon, and G57, and you can't see it in the drawing here, but it looks like that half moon wraps around that piece there. So that's what I did. It doesn't look like there's anything in the future that connects to that, so even if it's a little off, I don't think it's really going to matter, because it doesn't relate to any more parts after this. It just is there for looks. So we're going to go with that. And then we got this wheel here. And it goes right inside of here. That I know for sure. Just like that. However, I want to make sure it's straight. Alright, cool. Alright, so let's go ahead and get our elevation wheel assembly attached to our gun cradle. And then that is going to complete step 36 for us, and then we're going to move on to 37 where we're going to be putting on our gun shields. And if I get my big fumbly fingers to work, I think we got it. There we go. Alright guys, making progress. Our cradle looks nice. A lot of nice detail to that. Check that out. And we still got the paint to do on this. This is just strictly plastic at this point. No primer, no painter. I did paint these in the silver, but a good part of that's going to be covered up into the olive drab. And there's only a small section of that silver that shows according to the instructions. And then we got those copper pieces that are going to be coming off the end of that. And they get fastened to these hooks down here, so they'll be actually like this. So, but we'll get into that. That's coming up in just another step or two. So, all right, very cool. So let's set this aside. We have our gun shields that we need to work on. So once we get those through, we're going to go ahead and paint. We're going to attach those gun shields to this, and then we're going to go ahead and paint this as one unit, and we can get that attached onto the hull, and then we're going to start working on our barrel. That's coming up on the next page. Look at there, step 38. We got our barrel coming up. However, we have the aftermarket barrel, and this thing is nice. And I think I showed it in the unboxing. But let's take one more quick look at it. Isn't that nice? And it's even rifled on the end. I know you probably can't make it out with the camera, but there is rifling inside of there. And I almost hate to paint this thing. This looks so nice. So, but anyways, yeah, we got that coming up. So let's go ahead and build these gun shields. Not a whole lot to them, just a couple of pieces, and then we get those attached onto that gun cradle. So be right back. All right, so the first piece it calls out for is the C9, which is this one right here. And actually, guys, these pins that are on the back of these splines that we're putting in are what fastens this to our gun cradle. So we got to kind of make sure we get things lined up here right. Yeah, guys, we ain't got too much further to go on this, and we'll have this thing whooped. Then we're going to start on the diorama, which I'm really looking forward to doing, because I have not yet. Or what am I doing here? That one goes here. Shoot. I'm talking and not paying attention is what I'm doing. I kind of want to make sure I have these in a nice vertical position, because like I said, it has the tabs that are going to be fastening into our gun, and those holes are already pre-drilled, and we want to make sure that those fit in there. Let me zoom in a little bit on this, maybe. Yeah, okay, so this is the C9. This is the one that I was going to start off with, and I got to running my mouth and not paying attention to what I was doing, and it almost got me in trouble. All right, there we go. And there is a little groove in this plastic to help show where that goes. Make sure that that's nice and vertical. It looks pretty good. Yeah, because these two tabs on the end here are what fastens into our gun, or our gun cradle. I'll have to say though, guys, this has been a real enjoyable build for me. I really enjoyed this one, and it was a costly kit. But it was certainly worth it to me. Like I said, I really enjoyed building this one. Now this one I got to slide around. There's a there's a little notch in there, and I want to make sure that I got that where that needs to be. I think that's it right there. All right, let's set that one aside. We got a second one to do here. And let me cut out the two. There's two pieces, C10, C12. So let me go ahead and get those cut out. All right, guys, found those parts. And this one is C10. There we go. We'll give that a few seconds to set up. All right, let's get C12 on there. Move this one over a little more centered. It was leaning just a little bit to the right. There we go. All right, so now we need to get these into the sides of our gun cradle here where we had drilled those holes previously. And I don't know if you can make those out in there. Yeah, there you can see them. So those are going to be going in here and in that one there. However, I'm going to give these a few moments to stiffen up a little bit, get attached, simply because I think we're going to be applying a little bit of pressure to get those into those holes. And I don't want to snap these ribs back. I'm getting on camera with them. I don't want to snap those ribs off. So we're going to let those set and just make sure that they're nice and dry before we attempt to put those onto onto the gun cradle, okay? So let me put it on pause here. It'll only be a second for you, but I'm going to give it about 20 minutes on my time just to make sure they're done. So we'll be right back. All right, guys, I think we are set to go with this here. There it goes, just like that. There we go. Let me let that sit and dry. Let me back this camera out. We don't need to be that close. Have this in 3D. Alright, let's hold that a few minutes. Yeah, that's perfect now. Look at that. Perfect. Cool. All right, let's let that set up. All right, and moving on to step 38, guys. Here we're getting into our Canon, our 155mm gun, I should say. And we are not going to be using part G54, the included barrel, okay? We have our aftermarket, beautifully chromed stainless steel barrel that we're unfortunately going to be covering in primer and paint eventually. But that is a nice looking barrel. Okay, so we are going to be using kit provided parts with this Canon, okay guys? So all these parts here are going to attach to our Canon. I have them right here. They're cleaned up and ready to go. I do have them numbered just to save myself problems during assembly, so I don't have to sit and try to figure out where each piece goes. Okay, so those are all cleaned up and ready to go. And then off into step 39, I have all those pieces right here cleaned up and ready to go, and that's going to make the breech and the door for our gun. Okay, so let's go ahead and get some construction done. Let's go ahead and start on step 39 here. Let's go ahead and build the breech. All right, let's get started. All right, so we get the light a little bit better in here. I got some funky lighting going on. Okay, so part G43. Let me locate my glue. I never seem to be ready when I start these videos. And this needs to go get G42 attached. Very simple. There we go. And then it looks as like we have part G43. Alright, there we go. G46. And we need to clean this up. Okay, and then this G64 sits right on top here. Alright, cool, there we go. Alright, so now we got these group of parts here we need to assemble, and I have those right here and ready to go. Like a well-oiled machine up here today. Alright, so let's start with these two here. Let me get these. Alright, it is directional. I just had to find out which way it went, because there's pins located on one side. It goes just like that. Let's give this a minute to dry, guys. Alright, then we got this little guy here. Yeah, we're just about done, guys. We just got this barrel assembly, and then we're gonna stick that onto the hull, weather this bad boy up a little bit, and then we can start the diorama. Alright, cool. There we go. And then this goes to do. Let me figure this part out here, guys. Be right back. Alright, I'm just double checking my work, guys. That's why I keep going back and forth. But this one has a little bit of a pin right here, and I know you can't make that out because my camera's not focusing correctly. But there is a pin right there, and that goes only one way on the back side of this, and that's what I was looking for. And you can feel it lock in once you hit it. You can feel it pop right in where it belongs. So there we go. Alright, let's give that a few moments. Alright, then we just got this handle. Alright, there we go. That completes that assembly. Alright, I think I might have jumped ahead just a little bit here, guys. Trying to get things figured out, and like I said, I'd rather double check than to do it wrong the first time. So we got, this is piece G56, guys. And that sits right in there like that. Okay. And this is the breech of our gun. And it does open and close. However, I got wet parts here, so I'm not going to show you at the moment. But ours is going to be in the open position because we're going to have soldiers loading ammo into the breech in our diorama. So, but it is in the closed position at the moment. So let me let this sit here, let this handle dry, and then we'll continue on. Alright, while that's drying, let's go ahead and get some of this barrel done here. So this is piece 25, and it'll go down to it locks in at the end of this piece here. And this is part 27, which is the other half of our barrel assembly. And these do come together as such. And let's get some glue in here. Again, guys, this is not kit provided, this barrel. However, the plastic housing that we are putting on it is. Okay. And now we got part G14, which needs to go into here. And it does have a place where that locks in. You can see those tabs right there. just like that. That's a nice fit. It fits perfectly on this barrel. Alright. And then we need G13, which I have right here. We're going to do the exact same thing. And then one more G12. Alright, very cool. Alright, then we get this tiny little piece here, G24. Let me get my camera, we can zoom in a little bit better here, guys. I apologize. And that's going to go right there. Alright. Alright, so I am using super glue to glue this breech to our gun here. Simply because it's plastic to metal. Okay, let's end this video here, guys. We are into this thing for almost an hour now. Time just kind of got away from us. I think we got one more video after this one here, guys, and we're going to have our M40 complete. The M40 unit itself, we still have the diorama we're going to be doing, but we will have the M40 itself complete. We got done painting the barrel. So we got some assembly to do now, and then we're just going to do some finishing touches. We got some cables that we're going to be putting in, and I think that's pretty much it, right? And then we can call that thing complete, and the next page is just the putting together the soldiers and this and that. But the M40 itself will be complete on the next video, guys. All right, guys, I appreciate you guys sticking with me and watching this whole hour-long video. We accomplished a lot, got a lot done, and like I said, we're just one video away from finishing this thing up, so watch for that one. I got another video coming up shortly of our King Tiger. We need to get that back on the bunch. This has been 3 or 4 video now on this M40. I'm trying to get this thing complete, and then we can spend a little bit more time on the King Tiger. So everybody have a great week, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye-bye.